a difference a day made. 24 little hours brought the sun and the flowers.
Hey, my name is China Moses. I am a singer, songwriter, producer, indie artist, human trying to figure out what I'm doing on this planet. And I'm here to share with you some thoughts, some ideas, some feelings, and a lot of other little secrets.
But now I'm part of you, dear. My lonely nights are through, dear.
But the music that we're performing is music from my previous album, Night and Tales. Some jazz standards that I covered while paying homage to Dinah Washington, who is one of my musical icons, and also music from an album that I haven't released yet called It's Complicated. So it's an album that I composed and wrote with help from a dear friend named Ollie Rockberger, who is a great singer-songwriter and just a great overall human. And it's thanks to Ollie Rockberger that I met Troy. And Troy Miller. I met Troy and Ollie 2 months after moving to London. After a big personal change in my life, I left France, where I grew up and I'd been my whole life, and decided to move to London. And I met Ollie and Troy thanks to my drummer at the time, who is from Lithuania. His name is Marius Alexa, a brilliant, brilliant drummer. And he said that for my new album that I needed to work with Troy Miller. Now, of course, I knew of Troy Miller's work because I'm a big Lauren Vula fan. And also I had seen Troy play on stage with Amy Winehouse. You know, there's not a lot of people. There's special people in music, special producers who have a true gift of knowing how to channel an artist's essence. And I think Troy Miller's one of those producers, kind of like Rick Rubin is, kind of like Quincy Jones, kind of like, I don't know, those are the three names that come to mind, right? Those are two names that come to mind right now. But of course, there's been others. But it's really a quite particular gift to be able to work with different artists and really pinpoint and help that artist showcase their essence. I was lucky enough to work with another producer for my album Night and Tales. His name is Anthony Marshall, another British producer who worked with Craig David and Nelly Furtado. So I've always searched for people who would try to add to me. I didn't do conservatory. I'm a natural singer. I don't know how to play anything good enough to play in front of anybody. But that doesn't mean that I can't compose, that I can't sing, that I don't produce, that this is my music. And as a woman and as a woman of color, it's kind of been difficult to find other people who would really listen to that, and other men who would really listen to that. And Troy happens to be one of those spirits. He's special. So I wrote and composed the songs, finished them out with Ollie Rockberger. Then I played them to Troy, and he was like, you got to go to New York. You got to go back home to the States. You have to record with your brethren. You got to record with Black American people because you are Black American. And I will always remember he was like, I hate to be the British white guy telling a Black woman that she needs to go play with Black American people, but And we laughed about it, and I was just like, oh yeah, that could have been taken wrong in so many ways, but I understood what he meant. And he was right. I was raised in Europe, and there was something about the subject matter that I was approaching in these songs that necessitated, that needed a sound and a treatment and just an energy of a tribe that has been through the things, that will understand me without me having to really explain myself. That would understand the fact that one song is more R&B, one's more funk, one's more fusion, one is more pop, one is more blues, rock, country. There's all Black American music within my music. I like to say I do full spectrum Black American music. And it took Troy for me to realize that yes, there are premier musicians all over the world, but there's something visceral within your DNA, within the group's common experience, that makes the way the musicians that are on my album interpreted my music, the way that they played, it made it seem more connected to me and to my heritage. And I had to honor that. So all that was a long way to say that Troy and I met before the pandemic. We went to New York. We recorded this album in 3 days. I started doing my vocal production and background vocals, and then the pandemic happened. And then I didn't want to sing anymore. I didn't want to put an album out. I found it all very trivial. And things started to open up. The world started to adjust, and he called me up and he was like, listen, have you ever heard of a place called Chechen? And I was like, yeah. I played there with Terrence Blanchard and my mom, Dee Dee Bridgewater, and their orchestra is wonderful and the venue is incredible. And he's like, well, they would like to have you back, and they would love for us to do these new arrangements, these new songs. And I was like, what, really? I was like, the album's not even out. I don't know how I'm putting the album out. I'm an independent artist. I produce my own stuff, so I don't know what next year is going to be. I don't know what nobody knows what tomorrow's going to be, but I literally do not know. I do not have a label. I don't have a manager. I have kindred spirits like Troy, who were just like, he wanted to share this music. And this is a gift. Like we were saying today, we can't even believe that we're here, because the output and the way that this venue and that the people who work here see music, they don't put boundaries to it. And it's very rare that a musical house like this that holds an orchestra would not put a boundary to what they're going to put on stage. That they're trying to blend all, they're trying to dissolve any boundaries on a yearly basis with everything that they do here. So it kind of seems normal that we would do this project here, even though it's not normal doing this project at all. But it makes total sense. I'm 44 years old. Troy and I are the same age. We don't fucking care. Good music is music. It's you feel it or you don't. You vibe with it or you don't. We can vibe with a melody from, 1618 as much as we can vibe with something that just came out yesterday. It's all a continuum of the human spirit, and we need to treat it as such. And with Black American music, and me being a singer-songwriter, Black American woman, within these quote-unquote classical walls, doing this very mixed Black American music with a British cat who is a drummer, who is a funk drummer on top of that. Like Troy is one of the best R&B soul drummers, jazz, of course, all that good stuff. But he's got pocket that makes other drummers sweat. Like, he gives a lot of drummers like a run for, he is a premier musician. And don't let him get on the piano. Like, he can play everything. So just the combination of us and the combination of the ages and generations within the orchestra also, it makes sense, but it doesn't at the same time. And I guess that's what life is. It makes sense, but it doesn't. A recipe for me? I would say it's 98% of knowing your past and 2% of having hope and faith in the future. That's it. That's it. There's nothing more to me. You know, I've been blessed with the opportunity to travel the world since I was a kid, because of my parents, because of my family being in the arts. You know, a lot of people know my mom, Dee Dee Bridgewater, but my father also was a director. I come from a family of arts. I come from people and a tribe of people that believe in art with intention. So I've traveled a lot throughout the world through the lens of the arts. And we're so much all the same, humans, so much. There's just a little tiny percentage that separates us. And I guess that little tiny percentage is life experience, where you're born, you know, and your personality. That's that small percentage. But we literally all want the same thing. We all want to be seen. We all want to be understood, cared for. You know, and then we all have different drives in life and reasons and stuff. But when you go down to like the 5-year-old kid and all of us, we all want the same thing. And we probably all want some candy. You know, we want something sweet. But so I don't have a recipe for me. My recipe is my life experiences. I have no idea how I've ended up here, except I can think and be like, oh, since I said yes to this, that brought me here, and I said no to that, so that brought me here. That's the only thing I could try to trace back, but I have no recipe. If I had a recipe, that would be something that's really set in stone, and I'm not the same person I was yesterday. So that's why I say, you know, pretty much, you know, I'm built of 98% of, you know, of the past. I am not creative all the time. I really am not. I have very big, very large moments of doing nothing. Nighttime is my creativity time. I've very rarely compose or come up with ideas during the day. I most of the time I come up with ideas in loud spaces for some reason. I guess that's me trying to find a way through the noise, you know. I always have melodies that come to me if I'm like at a loud bar or, you know, walking in a crowded area or in traffic, you know, in a car. It's really strange that it always comes in loud spaces. But during the pandemic, I found it was funny. I didn't want to sing, but the few times I did sit at the piano and like start to write, because there had to be a way for it all to come out. It was really early in the morning, because as horrific that global experience was, the morning silence was one that I'd never heard within the city. I was in London, and I lived on a very busy road, and those mornings were so quiet. You could hear the birds and stuff. You see foxes running by, and everybody was inside. And I did a lot of nights without sleep. I had a bout of insomnia because I was living alone, and that was a lot to reckon with. And it was when the sun was coming up and when the city was really quiet that I started like hearing melodies and sitting behind the piano. But in normal times, regular times, pre-pandemic, you know, BP, like we say, before a pandemic. Yeah, when it's loud, when I'm with other artistic people. I don't enjoy working alone, actually. I never finish a song alone. I don't see the joy in it. I like always starting, getting as far as I can, and then calling up a great friend and being like, hey, so I got this idea, can I come over? I find there's beautiful joy in joint creativity. It's the only thing there is. If you're about to get up on stage, it's the only thing you should think about is how are you going to connect to these other humans who are forced to listen to you in maybe a position and in a way that they wouldn't normally listen to you. Like when you really think about it, how many times do you really sit down without moving listening to music at home? It rarely happens. Unless you're going to bed and you like putting on some like music with your headphones. But when you're at home, you never listen to music without doing something else. I was raised by people who told me that connecting with the audience is the job of the artist. That's what you are. I am an emotional translator. I'm a prism. So the orchestra is putting out all of this stuff and it's all flowing through me. I'm redirecting the light to make it they're the rainbow. And I gotta put it out into a single light so it can reach each person in the audience as if it was for them. That is a big job. And it takes a lot of energy. And it's the artist's duty. There's that great Nina Simone quote, an artist's duty is to reflect their times. That's my job. I think was it Count Basie or Duke Ellington? One of our architects of Black American music said that joy is a job. And I will always remember I was hanging out with Roy Hargrove in Shanghai. It was his birthday, and we were high. I was with Theo Croker, wonderful trumpet player, and Roy leans over to me. He's like, we get paid for the travel. The music is the easy part. And I was like, oh my goodness, that's true. Like, me singing, it's really hard for me to say this because it can come off being conceited, but it's what I do. It is my gift. I did not go to school for this. I tried to walk away from music at least 4 times. I've quit. I've said, I'm gonna go do something else. I'm good at this also, so let me go and do this. I've stopped so many times, and every single time music just goes, get back over here. So if music has decided that you shall be a messenger of music, like if this isn't even my calling, I can't do anything else. It's gotten to that point in my life. I mean, of course I could have a regular, not a regular job, but I've had jobs before, I've had many jobs. But the one job that I'm really good at is connecting with people on stage. I'm better on stage than I am in studio. When I met Troy, he said, I want to do a record with you where you sound as good on the record as you sound on stage. And I was like, good luck, man, because I haven't, this is my 7th album. I'm like, I still haven't been able to do it, but I think we got it. But connecting to the audience is the most important thing. If you don't connect to the audience, then what are you doing? And it goes back to me truly believing that we're all the same. So if I'm feeling, if my song subject is the subject of loneliness, I know I'm not the only person to have felt lonely. If the song subject, one of the songs we do, is called Broken, that I wrote for one of the biggest loves of my life, one of my best friends who passed away right before the pandemic from breast cancer, and we were the same age, I wrote that song for her. Everybody's dealt with loss. It's I find it quite frightening when another human being thinks they're so unique that somebody else can't understand them. But that's me. And so my job is to connect and make sure that these humans that are spending this time listening to this music and watching this show in this contrived position, that they feel something and that they leave lighter and with more joy. I want to provide that space. I want to go through all of these deep emotions so they don't have to for those 2 hours. That's my job. I found this cassette tape of my mom when I was a teenager. I think I was 16 because I think she was 16 on the tape. Anyways, it was a vocal competition. And she's improvising and scatting and sounding just absolutely incredible at 16. And I remember I was pretty much the same age. And so I was listening on repeat in the dark in the basement of this gorgeous house that she had purchased, this architect's house in the northern suburbs of Paris. And she comes home, she comes downstairs, and she sees I'm just sitting there in tears. And she's like, "What's wrong?" And I'm like, "I'll never sound as good as you." I was just like big crocodile tears, just like, oh my gosh, I'm tearing up now because I know that feeling. I still have it today. It's still there. I've just learned how to deal with it. I've had therapy, No matter how many concerts I do, I'm just like, damn, I'll never be that. I'll never be able to improvise. Improvisation isn't my thing. Scatting's not my thing. Never's been. And I'm okay at it, but it sounds, when your mother is of that level, it's like, why even try? I had to find my own lane. But she wiped my eyes, and she told me, "Listen, you are you, and you're going to have to do the best you can with what you have. That is all anybody's asking of you." And when she told me that, I still was crying. But I realized that a lot of the singers that I was attracted to weren't technically amazing vocalists. I started to realize that a lot of the artists I was drawn to were artists that had a beautiful mixture of presence and words, and it was a whole thing. It wasn't just the performance. And so I just dug deeper into that because I was like, well, if most, trained singers in the world of Black American music can sing me into my grave, I can write them songs, I can produce their records. There's so many other things I can do. It's all right. It's gonna be all right. And she told me 3 things that, I kid you not, have saved me, and they're probably the 3 things, the reasons why I actually have a career, besides the fact of chance and weird circumstance. But one was that you got to do the best you can with what you have. 2 was always sing the melody. Like when you're doing covers, sing the original melody first, know that melody, sing it with all your heart, and then branch away, then do something with it. But, always sing the melody, sing the story, sing the words, know the words, believe in them. And the third thing was always treat the musicians with respect. I've lived by those rules. They have never failed me till today. When I learn a new song, I mean, I know some people come to my concerts, and even though they're my songs, I'll sing them the same exact way. It might not be the same energy. I might, sing it a little more stronger, more power. There's slight nuances, but I pretty much sing my stuff the same way every single time. And I've had people come back to the concerts and be like, you sang it the same way, but it was different? I don't understand, And I'm just like, and that makes me happy, because if a song is good, if a melody is good, you don't really have to change it that much. And that's something you learn when you dive deep into, jazz vocals. You realize that, of course, Sarah Vaughan and Ella Fitzgerald and Billie Holiday could sing the same exact song, and it sounds completely different. But when you listen really close, they are all singing the same melody. They might add a note here or subtract a note there, but they're staying true to that melody. And a song that you don't feel like you have to stray from the melody is such a great song. So the music that I try to write, I try to make it strong enough. The melodies I hear, I try to make them strong enough so that when somebody else covers them, they don't have to stray. And strangely enough, lately on my last album, Nightingales, there's people covering my music around the world, which is kind of crazy. When I have this one song, well, there's two songs that get covered that show up every once in a while. There's a song called Watch Out and another song called Runnin'. People do not stray from the melody of those songs. It's funny. I was like, and every time I see that, first, I'm always amazed that somebody's playing my song. Like, that means that there is a 20-year-old somewhere on the planet who heard my record, loved it enough that they took it back to their voice teacher and was like, I want to cover this. Let me find the lyrics. Like, that's huge, first of all. And then secondly, they're just like, you know what? This sounds good the way it is, so I'm just going to sing it like that. Or I've heard people say that they're doing my rendition of a jazz standard. And I'm like, what world are we living? Like, and I'm just like screaming at my screen, like, do you know who Dinah Washington is? Like, don't say you're doing my version, because I'm doing her version, like, but that's transmission, that's what it is. So I've been singing since I was 16, and still, even for this concert, there's something in the back of my mind that says, you're still not there, and you still won't sound like her, And then the other side is like, my mom has been calling me all day because she's so proud. So if Dee Dee Bridgewater thinks I'm a good artist, because she's snatched me off stage before. She's told me, like, no, get back over here, sit down. If she's telling me that, if another singer that I adore, Carleen Anderson, is telling me that, if Monty Alexander is showing up to my gigs, if Pee Wee Ellis took me on the road with him, if Diane Reeves and Angelique Kidjo and Terry Lynn Carrington and all these artists, Terrence Blanchard, he didn't have to have me as a singer. There's other singers in Europe, And sometimes he had me, my mom was not there, so it wasn't to have the mother-daughter effect. Like, I have to sit and be real with myself. If all these people are inviting me around the world, then something might be all right. Because being the daughter of only goes so far.